the tape I was making for you last night just sort of ran right out without my permission in the middle of the Hamilton episode. So I just simply stopped and went to bed. And I've thought of a few more things about the stay in Whitefish that I want to fill in with, and then I'll have to play back the Hamilton part to see what I did say and what I didn't about that. Looking back on those years now, it appears especially evident that my generation paid a fantastic price for World War II. Despite the fact that we've had other wars, there was never a time in my lifetime, in my memory, that the entire society was restructured in order to wage that war without regard for the personal lives of the people involved in it. It was during that period of time that Uncle Merritt was stationed on the Atlantic coast, and Pearl, after earning the money by working as a housekeeper in a motherless home, had taken off to join him by bus with Jimmy all the way across the United States, which was a very gruesome trip at the time. I never saw Pearl again, but what evidently happened was that when she got east during Merritt's periods at sea, she got a job in a shipyard or aircraft factory, some such thing, and farmed Jimmy out. She placed him in a residential nursery, as I understand it, and I don't think she took him home except on the weekends. She complained that he made her nervous, but there's also the criticism coming from Merritt that she got in with the wrong crowd and, began to smoke and drink heavily. And cigarettes were pretty hard to get, so that she would write to Merritt to try to get her cigarettes because he was a supply officer. I don't know whether you remember this, but Merritt's ship was torpedoed and sunk, and he was later awarded a citation of some sort for having saved the ship's payroll so that the guys would have the money that was coming to them. Otherwise, it might have been many months before they could have sorted out what their pay was and reissue the pay. Grandpa and Grandma excused a lot of Merritt's emotional problems in later years to his wartime experiences. I haven't ever been really willing to do that because the rest of us somehow or another muddled through and came out of it. But when Merritt again was assigned to shore duty, he decided he would have to divorce Pearl. And he and some relative of my father's went to this nursery and kidnapped Jimmy to take him to appear in court. This in New York State, it was a necessity to prove adultery to get a divorce at that time, but Merritt had applied for the divorce, I think, in Massachusetts, in one of the outlying states, and the judge had told him that if he could bring the child and appear in court, that he would be awarded custody. So this is how he got it. And after he got custody, he put Jimmy into residential care in licensed homes. I don't know whether they were licensed or not, but at any rate, he was not at all satisfied with the care that Jimmy was getting. And apparently, he wasn't being fed properly because later on it was discovered he had a severe nutritional difficulty. But it was while Merritt was back there that he met Harriet. I don't think Harriet had seen Jimmy at the time that Merritt decided that Jim wasn't getting good enough care, and he would bring him out and leave him with your grandmother to look after. On that trip to bring Jimmy west, Merritt passed through Whitefish and stayed over a day or two with us. And I pleaded with him to leave Jimmy with me to raise with you kids. But he had made up his mind that he wanted to take him to California to Grandma's. So Grandma actually had Jimmy at the time that I was having so much illness. And when I called her tearfully and told her how much I needed her and needed help, she turned me down because she said she had responsibility for Jimmy and she just simply couldn't come. But I can remember just dreaming about when I was a kid lying in the sun on the beach at Clear Lake, and I would fantasize about how it was in better days. You see, my generation was more the parenting generation for Cricket's age, for children who were reaching adolescence in the 60s. And this is another reason why I say that we really paid a heavy price for the war. Those of us who survived the war period, our uppermost thought was to have a comfortable home, to buy property, to put down roots, and to provide our kids with a stable environment that we didn't have as adolescents and young adults. Well, this, as you know, didn't really pay off because those kids grew up feeling that their parents had no ideals, that they weren't willing to sacrifice for causes, that they were totally materialistic. And this wasn't really true. I think we had given a great deal for causes, be they, good or bad or whatever. However, we were convinced that, we were doing a necessary job to preserve liberty. The way it affected your generation was that the kids were neglected as small children. And probably that also built into some emotional problems. But I don't think they were as severe as the problems the children had who were born maybe right after the war, the baby.